How many of you heard that salt is bad for you when it comes to blood pressure? Salt's going to initiate high blood pressure. How many of you heard that genetics has something to do with it? Well, both of those are wrong. Salt has nothing to do with high blood pressure, and genetics has nothing to do with high blood pressure. It's a simple deficiency of a single nutrient. A single deficiency of a single nutrient. We've eliminated high blood pressure in all these animals. What's the first thing that a good farmer puts out for his livestock in the pasture? Salt blocker, salt lick, isn't it? And there's nobody out in the pasture telling a cow she's limited to 1 lick a day, is there? And I refuse to believe that my human patients are dumber than a cow or a sheep. Say, look, go ahead and salt your food to taste. Don't worry about it. If you put too much salt on there, it won't taste good. You won't eat it. Remember the Japanese. They consume an entire salt shaker per person a day, 15 grams of salt a day, and they have 85% less cardiovascular disease than we do. And high blood pressure is not even in their vocabulary because they don't get it very often. Well, this came out in July of 1997. It redeemed my view on salt. It says, doctors lack proof that too much salt is unhealthful. After years of telling healthy people that too much salt isn't good for them, researchers still don't have solid evidence to back up that claim. Now, what do doctors call people who give unsubstantiated health and medical advice for profit? Call them quacks, don't they? So next time you have a doctor who says, look, I need you to give up salt because you're getting to that age, we've got to worry about your blood pressure. You say, doc, you're a quack. There's no evidence to support that claim. Yeah, I know you want to give me those statin drugs and blood pressure medication, even though I don't have those problems. And you need to go back and kind of read your stuff here because that's not true. Well, there was a wonderful study done by the U.S. government called the Sodium Task Force. Once and for all, they were trying to prove that salt was the cause of high blood pressure. This was published in April of 1997, and this is the bottom line of the study. It was called the Sodium Task Force, 1997. You can look it up on the internet. The study found that people who limited their salt intake to 1,000 milligrams or 1 gram a day, like doctors want you to do, have 6 times more heart attacks, 600% more heart attacks than those who defied their doctors and ate double that amount. If you listen to your doctor, you had 6 times more heart attacks than people who defied their doctors and ate double that amount. So what mineral are we talking about? What mineral are we talking about when it comes to high blood pressure? It turns out it's a deficiency of calcium. Now, you can drink 50 gallons of milk a day and you can't get enough calcium to get your blood pressure down. You can eat 25 pounds of cheese a day and the only thing that will happen is you'll be so constipated you'll need a jackhammer to have a bowel movement. If you didn't have hemorrhoids, you're going to get them. You can take all the Tums you want. You can take all the oyster shell, eggshell, limestone, coral, calcium you want. Nothing's going to happen. That's because if you take 1,000 milligrams of limestone or calcium carbonate, which is coral, calcium, and eggshell and oyster shell, all those are the same chemical formula. You take a 1,000 milligram capsule, you're not getting 1,000 milligrams of calcium. Only 140 milligrams is elemental calcium. 860 milligrams is carbonate. And because it's an elemental form of calcium, you only get 10%. So 10% of 140 milligrams is 14. If you take 2 of those 1,000 milligram capsules of calcium carbonate in any way, shape, or form, you get 28 milligrams of calcium. It's not going to do you much good when it comes to arthritis, osteoporosis, high blood pressure, periodontal disease, etc., etc. But we've eliminated a lot of high blood pressure in animals and some very famous people who didn't want to use drugs. How many of you have heard of menopause? Raise your hand. Say, now even the guys are raising their hand. Oh, I know about that one. Well, up until about 1958, every doctor used to make 50 cents on dispensing a little herbal formula called Lydia Pinkham's. How many of you have heard of Lydia Pinkham's? Yeah. Lydia Pinkham's, very famous herbal formula, and would get rid of the hot flashes, the night sweats. But doctors only made 50 cents when they dispensed a bottle. In 1958, pharmaceutical companies came out with HRT, hormone replacement therapy. And all the research was done by veterinarians, and they were told not to give it to humans because it did terrible things to laboratory animals. They said, well, that may be true in laboratory animals, but it hasn't been proven in humans yet. We're going to have to kill a lot of women with this stuff before we get too excited about taking it off the market. And so they began to encourage women to take HRT in 1958. It turns out that HRT, estrogen and progesterone combinations, Premarin and drugs like this, increase the risk of breast and uterine and ovarian cancer by 78%. Increase the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease by 200%. Increase the risk of cardiovascular disease by 200%. And a new study that just came out a couple of days ago, and again, I don't have a slide for it yet, and I apologize, increases your risk of asthma by 100%, increases your risk of gradual deafness as you get older by 30%. Why would anybody want to take HRT? Well, Dr. Wallach, you got to get rid of the hot flashes some way. I said, well, why would you risk all these terrible things just to get rid of hot flashes, night sweats? See, you're just a man. You have no idea. I mean, women used to beat me up all the time in my practice. I say, well, it's not worth it. And so we went back to the old Lydia Pinkham's formulas. And guess what? Worked like a charm. There's 29 major studies which shows it gets rid of the hot flashes and night sweats. Then you throw in the liquid calcium, and guess what? 1,200 milligrams per serving. You deal with the concerns about osteoporosis. You don't have to have all the risk from the HRT. You don't have to have all the risk from HRT. This came out actually in 2000, and they said, and they predicted that the report on carcinogens or cancer-causing chemicals, which was going to come out in January of 2002, is going to list estrogen as a cancer-causing chemical. Well, guess what? That report comes out every year, and guess what's at the top of the list of cancer-causing chemicals? Estrogen. What makes it most dangerous is doctors prescribe it. Doctors prescribe it. Obesity. 40% of Americans are overweight now. They're obese, 30 pounds overweight over their ideal weight for their body type and height and so forth. 40% of Americans are obese. This is relatively new. 50 years ago it was like 15%, and 100 years ago there was very rarely, less than 1% of Americans were obese. And it turns out it's caused by a simple, single problem. I can walk on a horse farm, and I can tell you in 30 seconds if the horses on that farm are getting all the minerals they need. This is a little working wagon in an Amish farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. And I walked on that place, and I knew immediately that the horses weren't getting all the minerals they needed because the horses were eating, nibbling all along this buckboard rail, and then they just ate this one particular place. Why did they eat that one particular place? Because that's where the farmer put his hand when he jumped out of the wagon every time. His hot, sweaty hand full of what? Salt. Okay? Now, my daddy had a 4th grade education, and he knew every time he'd see our cattle chewing on the fence and eating dirt and chewing on the feed box instead of eating the feed, they were minerally deficient. He'd give them minerals and it'd go away. And we usually learn painfully when we were a kid that it's not socially acceptable to chew on the furniture and eat dirt. Bam! Don't do that anymore. That chair costs a lot of money. Ooh, okay. If you're that hungry, go into the kitchen and have a piece of pie and ice cream, or eat a Twinkie, or have a RC and a moon pie. And so people began to recognize these cravings, which we call pica and cribbing in animals and munchies in people. The munchies in people are pica and cribbing in animals. Pica and cribbing in animals are the munchies in people. And so we've been taught that these cravings and the munchies are due to a Twinkie deficiency. Now, if we were taught as kids that this is caused by a mineral deficiency, we'd all take minerals that have 0 calories in them. Americans would all be slim. Weight problems are nothing more than a mineral deficiency disease. Now, nobody knows more about weight gain, weight loss than veterinarians. Why is that? When you put an animal into the feedlot, what are they supposed to do? Lose weight or gain weight? Gain weight. So we know the technology. And snack food companies know this. They spend a lot of money on research learning the technology of weight gain. And they fix their little snacks to make sure that you just can't eat one. In fact, one of them, Lay's potato chips, even uses that as their motto on their bag. You just can't eat one. And so they fix it so you're minerally deficient if you eat their stuff. Okay? But if you take your minerals, the cravings go away. And that alone, you can lose 10, 15, 20 pounds just because you're not desiring to eat things between meals. You're not going to sit there and watch TV and fill your face all night because you don't have those cravings anymore. That's not a problem with your self-respect. It's not a problem. You don't have a deficiency of hypnosis. You don't have a deficiency of acupuncture. You don't have a deficiency of ephedra. You have deficiencies of